Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to my videos. I've been trying for a couple of days to get this video out. It's now Tuesday, and I hope everybody enjoyed their Super Bowl weekend if you watched the Super Bowl. I'd first like to tell you a little bit about myself. I started sewing when I was probably 5 years old. I was back in 60, 68, 69. I learned hand sewing from my dad's grandmother, which would have been my great-grandma. She did not use a sewing machine. I don't even remember her owning things like a washer and dryer. She did everything the old way, as she put it. It's the old way? No, it's my way. She was the greatest person. The first quilt she ever made me was one called a Holly Hobby, and I love that quilt. I don't know whatever happened to it. It was too many years gone by. I used to hang it on. I didn't use it as a blanket. I used it as a wall hanging. That's when I learned to sew by hand, and for many years that's the only way I knew how to sew. I didn't know the first thing about a sewing machine. And then after I got out of the service in 82, 83, something like that, I went to live, I was in the U.S. Navy. I'm very proudly to have served in the U.S. Navy. My dad was living in Oregon, at which he had owned an upholstery shop for many, many years. He did from restoring antique cars to boat tops, boat seats. His worst was motorcycle seats. He hated doing them because it took like 2 days and it just wasn't worth his time. He did a lot of furniture, including building furniture from the ground up, meaning cutting the wood. He had every kind of tool you could imagine. He was a Snap-on person, and Snap-on came about every other day, and Dad was always getting some kind of new device or some kind of a new gizmo, and his entire shop was air, so all his stuff was pneumatic stuff. I mean, he did have like screwdrivers, and his favorite saying, if I would ask him, well, how do you do it? He goes, there's the tools, figure it out. So to this day, that is how I learned something. Rarely do I ask, well, how do you do it? It's like, well, figure it out. There's the tools you need, figure it out. At which time, my dad also owned, inside the shop, even though there was no workers, he had 5 very large industrial brother machines. Of course, he dealt with leather and vinyl and boat tops, canvas, so he had to have big machines. And that was the first time I'd ever experienced a machine. And I'll tell you what, a walking foot will walk over the top of your finger. And I was just lucky that I'd caught myself, but the walking foot was on my finger, and it proceeded to almost attempt. The needle came down and I stopped, and I had to have my dad's help to get my finger out, and luckily the needle didn't go in. The other good thing was he had rigged, I wouldn't say rigged, it's just the way it is. I didn't know how to use a presser foot that you go on the floor, because that's not how his machines were set up. They were set up hooked to the side of the computer or the sewing table, and you used your right knee or your left knee depending on which side he had the presser foot. And it was a presser foot, and then there was a little lip on that, and that lip, it was a piece of metal. And the presser foots were actually metal. They weren't plastic like, our sewing machines are today. And it just pressed up against that, you controlled the speed by how quickly your knee got over there. And it was interesting learning how to sew with my knee versus my foot. At times it made it nice because you could stand up, which now I can't stand up. There's no way I could stand and sew. I would end up on the floor. But it gave me an introduction into large machines, which technically made it a whole lot easier to adjust to my own sewing machine, because up until that point I still sewed everything by hand. Even at that point, when I would make a quilt, I still sewed it by hand, which my dad thought was really strange. The only thing I would do is I would tell him, "Is it still stealing if you know I'm stealing it?" I was always stealing his, because I made comforters versus quilts. And I was always going in there and getting the batting, which was big fluffy stuff, because he bought it by the big rolls. And I would always, "Okay, I'm taking this much." And he would just kind of look at me funny. Because a comforter is different than a quilt. A comforter, it makes like a big, huge pillowcase. And you sew it wrong sides or right sides together, and then you pull everything out, and then you're crawling in this thing or standing up and pushing all the stuff inside. Then you close it. Then you basically can quilt over the top of that, but based on how puffy your batting and stuff is, you can't do real tiny quilting, because it will bulge out and it just looks funny. So then 5 years ago was the first time I ever got a actual sewing machine, which I thought, no, I don't. I deal with enough electronics and technology in my life. I don't want a sewing machine that does. And I just have a plain Singer machine. And it has done wonders. Since I got it 5 years ago, I have made 350 quilts. And probably 80% of them have all been the size of a California king bed. So they're quite large quilts. And yes, I do hand quilt them. Sometimes I use the sewing machine, and most of the time I hand quilt them with a needle and thread. So that's my experience with crafting and such. The other thing I want to mention is I've had 5 surgeries on my mouth. They have had to take parts of my jaw off. That's why when I talk, I don't open my mouth very wide, because I literally can't. They've tried to avoid wiring my jaw shut. I'm missing parts of my jaw in the back here. So they have 3 more surgeries to go to fix my mouth, because right now I have no gum. They're flat. So that's the reason no teeth. It's not because I don't have them. I have them. They don't work. But on to bigger and better things. We all have issues. I just thought I would let everybody know. Here is, in a previous video, I showed you that I was working on, it's called the Turnabout Granny Square. Try that again. The Turnabout Granny Square Quilt. And this is what it looks like. It basically is a whole bunch of 2.5-inch squares all sewed together. And how you get those is with this effect. Now, mind you, with the white, and I know it's hard to see. I don't have the best lighting in here. I will have better lighting. It's just right now I'm taking advantage of. I just have one window in that corner, but I will take advantage. I'm trying to take advantage of the daylight, which is why this is filmed during the day instead of night. And then my overhead lights, which are not the best. This room is kind of dark, and there's actually only one physical light, which is over in the corner, and I have a big LED light that I can actually control with a remote, which is really strange. I can change the colors and dim it, and I'm like, no, I don't want no blue light on. I don't want a red light on. I just want it normal light. It is rather bright, but if you turn it off, it looks like I've gone into the dark. So, and then I do have one overhead light here, which I don't like looking at it because it can't really blind someone that's blind. But I decided to tell you, and this, the way that this block is made, you make sets of strips, and each strip has 4 in it. And how you make this would be considered a set. It doesn't matter what the colors are. Yeah, I've already cut some off of it, so it's all scrabbly. It doesn't matter what the colors are, as long as there is 4 in each one. And if you look at this one here, where the white is at the bottom, or white can be at the top, however you want to look at it, you just have to remember there's 3 colors and 1 white. So it's color, 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 and white. Or whatever you make this white is your background, which is these little squares around there. You see the little squares here? That is the background. So whatever color this one is will be your background. The second one, if you look, you'll see it shows color, color, white, and a color again. These 2 together are considered a set. And the more of these sets you have, when you go to actually make the square, the better chances you have of putting 4 together, because you're going to cut this apart, sew it together, and cut it apart. And how you let me do. And this is what you do, because this is what you're looking for when you put those together. You see how the white comes across? That's the piece that you're looking to create. Whether this piece that goes across here is white, black, orange, you just have to remember that this is your main color, and it will become your background. And so when you sew these strips, like this one is, these strips were 2.5 inches. No, I didn't use jelly rolls. I actually cut them off of a bunch of back orders. And I just cut them all into 2-inch strips because I just did. I don't know why, I just did. And then you end up with, this is how you create them. You just have your strips together, and I'm going to see if I can hold 4 together. Like this. Well, I don't think I can hold 4 together. Oh, let me try. Here's the 2. Here's the other 2. And you see how it creates the kind of stair step? And yes, in case anybody was asking, this hand here, yes, they do glow in the dark. My nails glow in the dark. I just didn't get these changed because it's rare that I actually have 10 colors the same. But yeah, these ones here, they do glow in the dark. But this is what it looks like, and you just sew them together. When you sew them together, again, you're going to have this. I also wanted to show you one other thing. I know a lot of people are talking about, and you have to excuse me, I'm getting warm all of a sudden. I take out that coat. Everybody talks about nesting when instead of pressing the seams open, you nest them. And this is a good way for me to show you from these strips. And if you look on, let me turn my strips over so I don't get them confused. If you look at my strips where they're sewed together, I have this one, which is this one where I ironed them all down, and then this one, they're ironed up, so that when I sew them together, you're going to do right sides together, and you nest your seams, meaning where the two seams, I'm going to see if I can't show you. My eyes will focus here. See where the two seams come together? I hopefully could see. Or you could see where the sew line is. You stick that, like, they'll just go together and they just kind of stick if you press them. They'll kind of stick, and that's what you want to make sure, so that your seams come together. Otherwise, if you sew things and iron them open, it creates kind of a easier place for the seams to break in the quilt. It doesn't always, and I wouldn't say it always will, but a lot of times it just creates a weak point, whereas this creates less of a weak point. I had to turn the camera off for a little bit. My dogs all decided they was going to do having their concerts, and they were howling, so I had to turn it off. It's very, very loud, and what I'm doing is sewing so I can have a second of the 9-patch to show you. And I'm just excuse me, finishing it up. Allergies and asthma is not a good combination. And if you nestle seams so they're pretty close. I mean, I'm never perfect on my corners. They're just, it is what it is. I'm gonna lift my camera up here. Come on. So it's not so down, so low. There we go. And when you nestle seams, you get, you know, it's not perfect. It's not perfect, but they come together pretty close at the corners where the two seams meet, right here. I mean, they're pretty close. You know, they're not, like I said, I don't do things perfect. I'm not perfect, and I never will claim to be. I do what I do. Let me get this ironed really quick. So after you're done ironing them flat, and again, same thing, it's not a good idea to open the seams. It's easier to, if you fold them to one side, or fold them, iron everything to one side or the other. That's your preference. If you iron anything where you have white, you just have to remember that if the color touches the white, in this case, it's not going to, because it's white. But in the case where white, that could create a shadow, and you could see it. Like this one, there is a bit of a shadow, but because of the application of this one, it's not going to make any difference. You're not going to be able to see it, just like you don't see it in there. Okay, now you have two. Technically, you'll do, as I explained, the sets are the two different ones. I only have two sets, or two of these squares, and there's my camera's way over there. I only have two of these squares, but for this purpose, it'll be fine. Normally, you would have 8 total of the strip sets, so you would end up with four different 12 patches. What you're going to do with these 12 patches now, and I'm going to move my camera down so you can see exactly what I'm doing. And yes, I will have my cameras all fixed and set up so that you can see a little better. I'm going to get an overhead camera and get that all set up. Right now I don't have it. My ceilings are a little low, so it's hard to, yeah, this is a really old house built in like 1935, so, and in fact this room I'm in, it's when I researched the history, this part used to actually be what they call part of an Arizona sunroom, and the room is actually not wood, it's concrete, big concrete blocks, and you can see, well, here I'll show you what it looks like. You can see where there's a ledge. that ledge is concrete. And the owners of the house, who, she's more like my sister and my brother-in-law than anything. She likes pink or purple. So this entire room is painted purple and trimmed in a dark purple. I told her she was silly, but it's hers, and that's fine. And I don't have any problem. If I wanted to repaint it, I could. She wouldn't say anything. I told her I was going to paint it solid black with purple and pink polka dots. She just goes, I don't think that's a good idea, sis. I just laughed at her. I said, why would I paint it something like that? Are you crazy? And she was just laughing at me, because I like to torment her. Okay, with what we're going to do with these four white squares, that's where you're going to cut. So what you're going to do is get your ruler, and hopefully everybody can see what I'm doing. My old ruler that's the numbers are coming off of, and it's fine because it works. On your cutting mat, I use my cutting mat because it's a little more accurate than a ruler as far as if your squares are not identical. Don't think that they are, because they may be a little wonky, and again, it's not going to hurt anything. But instead of you trying to judge the ruler as a guide, if you line up the bottom of the white, see, here's the bottom and here's the top, find a line. It doesn't matter where that line is. Right now I got it lined up on the number 5 on this side of the mat. You want to find the number 5 on that side of the mat, or whatever you're using, and the 2 points are then straight. And you want to use your rotary cutter that I know everyone remembers to close every time they're done with it. So hopefully I won't be in the way for you to see this, and I'm just going to switch it so I don't get in your way, so you can see how it's cut. You just, I can't see on that dark. Yeah, I can't see on when it goes on the white, like this section here's white, I can't see it, not at all. And that's why my mat is on the dark side, because the other side is white and I can't see it. You just go corner to corner across the white, and when you line it up, the ruler will actually cross. And if it doesn't quite cross, it's not going to hurt anything, because this particular quilt, as you can, and if you look up here, when you sew those seams together, it will cut off those points. So your points are not going to show anyway. Okay, and this is what you get when you cut them in half. You get 2 pieces like this. So let me get the other one cut really quick. And again, even if you're not exact, it's not going to hurt. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't. I'm not sure I got it. Ah, you know what? I need a new rotary blade. They don't last. I went and got the titanium roller blades just to see if they lasted any longer. I wouldn't say they last longer, but it does allow you to cut more thicknesses. So this is from 2 of the squares. Now, to create that effect, what you're going to do is take your squares, now they're actually triangles, not squares, and you're going to put them together. I'll hold those, or I'll actually pin them to the board up there. Like this. And because mine are, I only did 2 different colors, not one, you're going to have, and This is the one use for pens. I don't like sewing with them, so it's rarely that I use them. But I thought, oh, I have a good use for pens. See, you have here. And as long as I don't stab myself, here. You see how that comes? See, that's the top. So this actually is in 4 pieces. And again, I will not be sewing these together because they're just 2 colors. I like the change, so I'll be making 2 more. 2 more sets. And the only reason I'm pinning them is because I don't know. I don't want it falling down because it's not. It's just the other block that's under there, so it would fall down and wouldn't stay. Otherwise, I wouldn't pin. And there's a pin under there. What's it holding? Oh, I know it. Oh, that's cute. Little. That's what I hate about those little balls on the pins. They come off. I don't know why they do that. No, I don't have any of the fancy pins. I don't. No, I just have normal. And some of these pins are these pins. They're not even for quilting. They're for hand quilting because they're really super short. And I mean, they're short. There's no way you could use them for quilting. They're just too short. And there's your block. I mean, it's not real hard. It's this block here. It's not real hard. But again, even if you do use the same colors, you see what happens? This is what you want to try to avoid so you don't have, but you want to try to, I mean, this looks okay. Probably better if I switched it. But what you want to try to avoid is this center 4-patch here. What you want to try to avoid is having 2 of the same color side by side. In other words, you don't want this. It doesn't hurt anything if they're opposite, but you don't want them side by side because then it creates, and one of them, I think I did. Maybe I fixed it. No, I did. I fixed it. So I'm not sure. But one of them, I got it completed and went, oh, no, that's not going to work. And my finishing of this block, let me move my camera. Hopefully nobody gets dizzy from when I move it. Sorry. Okay, turn. And with this block, my border will look like that. And the reason is because my idea when I did this block was not as a quilt, but I thought I want it different in terms of, if you look at this quilt, and mine will, I will probably go 6 across and 7 down. Almost all my quilts are made to go on a California King bed. Yes, that's because that's what I have. I've always made quilts large. I want the quilts to hang over the side. I don't want them just on top. The only time I do them just on top is when I make the comforters. So I want them just on top. Let me see if I can get this. I'm not going to be looking directly at the camera, but because it's in a weird position now. But I want you to see. Oh, that's not going to work either. Hold on. See if I can get it pointed. There we go. There. Oops. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to put 2 cameras on there, and I haven't figured that one out yet. I'll get it there. But if you look at this, what I looked at is in when I was envisioning this, and I'm thinking, Well, you have quilts that look like shadow boxes. Okay, that's the ones with the sashing between. And that's exactly what this is. It's done with the sashing in between. And I thought, well, wait a minute. Why not create a quilt that has a different thing in mind? In other words, it is still the turnabout granny square, but the idea behind it was different. I thought, well, why can't you create a quilt that has the look of a box with a leg on it? Sort of like, I believe they're called little cubicles, where you can get them at, I believe, stationery stores, Walmart, places like that. It's a cloth box, and you can either leave it like that. It's like a shadow box, and then you buy little drawers that are also made out of some kind of a canvas or cloth, and they slide in and out. But if you even go back to thinking about something else, if you think about, for example, some of the movies where you're going into a tomb of some kind, on the wall there'll be scrolls, and they're rolled up and inserted in these boxes. That was my idea and what this looked like. And I'm like, wow, it's a little box with scrolls in it, except in this case it's not scrolls. It's rolled up, instead of folding material, rolled up material, and you just stick it in there. That was my idea. And I don't know if I'm going to put another outside border on it. More than likely not. Instead, I'm going to use what is called flange binding. And flange binding is, let me give you an example. Flange binding, oh, now I gotta bend over. Ow, 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 ow. Sorry about that. Oh, jeez. Flange binding is, like, this is red. Happens to be red. It really is red. It's the same red up there. I don't know why it looks orange, but it is the same red. And I'm just going to use one of these white strips. When you do flange binding, you have two different colors. And the color that you want to come over the front, because you do flange binding, you start the binding from the back. And the piece that you want to show over it's just a tiny, tiny bit that shows. That's the piece that you create bigger. So in other words, if I use this if I use red and white like I'm doing, my red would be an inch and a half, and then the white would be 1 3/4 inches. So that when you sew them together, you're going to go right sides together, and instead of directly in half, you're going to sew they're going to be folded directly in half, and it's going to make one bigger than the other, and that you'll match the seams and iron them directly, and that will make your flange. But that's what I'm going to put on the outside of this. And I'm also thinking of where the white border is, making the flange red and the rest of it white, and where the red is, making that part white. But I don't know if I want to go there, because of the fact of it would have to be so precise, and I don't know. So I may do the flange in black flange, which would show all the way around, but you're not going to really notice it. You just see a little bit of flange, and do it in red and black. My binding in red and black, and then you'll see the binding will be red, but you'll see that little bit of black sticking out. I don't know, I haven't decided. I'm going to have to test it out. So I want to thank everybody for watching my videos. And as always, please remember to be kind to everyone. If you're new to sewing, have patience. There is no such thing as a mistake, only a different way of doing something. And even when you think something is a mistake, it may not be a mistake. It may be, oh, it's a new quilt block. And they just make all your blocks that way. So, again, please be patient. Please, above all, be kind to everyone. Thank you. Goodbye.